college football show. We want to thank y'all for joining us. We got some good stuff. We're going to basically be painting the main picture of what college football should look like different in 2024. I'm Murdy. Monty, he's going to be the main host of the show. Monty, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Monty over here. I guess a couple things about me. Never done a podcast before, so we're learning as we go. But University of Tennessee grad, got the shirt on, so there will be some biases, but I'll try to be as unbiased as I can throughout the show. No promises that my takes won't be hot when it comes to the Vols, but excited to do this show. This is the first episode, obviously, for us, so there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way, but we're students of the game, so we're gonna just do it for fun. If you get it back, and great. If not, we're still having fun. We like to talk about college football, so
absolutely. And with this is us just kind of starting out. I mean, we're kind of open for suggestions. I mean, like I said, I'm not too deep into it. It's like if y'all see we're doing something wrong, like let us know. Reach out to us on one of the social medias or anything like that. Like anything y'all want us to discuss, we can try to hit everything y'all want. And that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, this podcast is going to go in so many different directions. I mean, the reason why we're doing it, as Murdy knows, we started just chicken scratch talking about college football in the academy, which I'm sure we'll get to that along the way eventually. But it was just kind of, we figured, we were good at talking about it. We had some hot takes, some cold takes, so we were like, let's put it on something, document it. So it'll be about a bunch of spitballing, but suggestions are always needed.
All right, well, let's dive right in. We got a lot of changes coming for the 2024 season. It's pretty much college football as you knew it, or as I knew it growing up, is pretty much everybody knew it. I mean, this is going to be the year that it's flipped on its head. I mean, the 14 playoff, that really did a whole thing, turning the whole BCS era over. But now we got, this is just 12-team playoff. We got teams going out into different conferences. It's just kind of all over the place. We got the Big Ten that looks like it's East Coast, West Coast, Big 12, pretty much the same thing. It's kind of crazy. Let's start off with the important conference. So let's talk about the SEC. We got two new additions: OU, Texas, joining the SEC. SEC's getting rid of divisions. No more East West. We're going to be all pretty much competing on the same platform there. And it really just shakes down to what's your schedule look like. There's a possibility you're playing five or six top 25 teams on that schedule. There's also a possibility you're playing, maybe two. So
that's the thing. That's the thing. Take a look at Florida, right? So you got Florida going into next year. Napier's second year?
Yeah, second year. Third. He's got to be at least three.
Okay. So I think it's his third year. Either way, relatively new coach. Good coach, but relatively new coach to the SEC. And then Florida's now thrown into this schedule. If they don't go 5-0 in those first five, like they're looking at some trouble, because those next 7 games in a row are very, very losable for them. Especially after how they were last year. You take their team last year, uncertainties, and then people calling for Billy Napier's head, and now you got this freaking schedule that they're coming into. It's any given Saturday in the SEC, so it'll be exciting to watch for a lot of those teams. But yeah, Florida's be interesting to see what Florida does. I don't mind them losing 9, but
let's see what Florida's schedule's looking like this year. Who we got?
Yeah, that's my computer still.
No worries. I'm pulling it up right now. All right, so it looks like we're starting with a game against Miami. Even that one I would probably say is a losable game.
That's the thing. It is losable. That's why but if you look at the back 7.
Okay, so we got Tennessee, Kentucky. For everybody who, everybody's listening on the podcast, we got Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, followed by Florida State. in rivalry week.
That's the last 7. So yes, the Miami game
Yeah.
is also very losable. But if they do not win those first 5, I mean,
So you're saying if they don't come out 5-0, they're
yeah.
looking at
Sorry, if they don't win those first 5, yeah, it's
So if
going
they
to
don't
be
come
it.
out 5-0, then they're looking at maybe a
Which is
5-7,
yeah,
no bowl game.
which is unlikely that they win those first 5, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Florida, but honestly, I'm kind of pulling for them because if they pull off that schedule, that saves Napier's seat.
Well, and so
Cool.
then you got another year of them being mediocre. So I mean, I guess that's always good.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. But I mean, what do you think of? I guess the SEC as a whole now. You had mentioned it going into that, and I kind of cut you off to talk about that Florida schedule. But I mean, just as the whole conference, it was already a gauntlet, right? And then you just add literally the 2 powerhouses in the Big 12, and now you got the super conference with no East and West. So now it's just like free for all.
Yeah, it's man, it's really. I mean, if you compare the conference, I don't really think the Big Ten. They always talk about how the Big Ten, the SEC, those are the big two. I really don't think the Big Ten matches up to the SEC at all. I mean, the Big Ten is very top heavy, but you get to those middling teams, it really falls off. I mean, after you hit Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, you got the new additions of Oregon, Washington, USC. I mean, even
UCLA,
USC, I don't think I buy into them. I mean, I think Lincoln Riley's probably going to be looking at an NFL job here before too long. But
yeah. I mean, the one team that intrigues me in the Big Ten is Oregon, because you can argue that Oregon has always been kind of in the Pac-12, has always been kind of the Ohio State, Michigan of the Pac-12, especially in recent years with USC and UCLA kind of falling off, and the Pac-12 as a whole falling off, with an exception of last year. So having basically another Ohio State / Michigan move to the Big Ten, it'll be really interesting to see where they fare. I personally think there should be no reason that they don't win the Big Ten, and I know a lot of Big Ten people won't like me saying that, but
Ohio State fans are going to come for your head on that one.
Luckily, there's no huge following yet, so we don't got to worry about that too much right now. But they'll start deep diving as we go on. They'll find episode 1 and hear that take. But
yeah, I think if Ohio State's looking at 11-0, your mentions are gonna be kind of blowing up on that one.
Yeah, well,
but
hey, it's just an intriguing team that's moving to the Big Ten. That's all.
I agree. I think Michigan, after winning that national championship, Jim Harbaugh saying is, pieced out on them. I mean, their Sharon Moore took over, correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
OC
I'd have
from
to look at them, but yeah,
their OC from last year, he took over, and if I'm messing it up, please forgive me on that. But OC from last year, he took over. I think Michigan's taking a step back. Oregon,
yeah, absolutely.
Oregon, I'm looking at as being that probably the second best Big Ten team. I mean, you could debate them in Ohio State, but what Dan Lanning's done out there with the Phil Knight backing of the NIL, I mean, Oregon is a powerhouse out there in the West.
Yeah, well, and especially if Lincoln Riley goes the way you say he's going, and he's going to go up to the NFL. I mean, Oregon has a very, very easy opportunity to corner the recruiting market in the West, in the Big Ten, one of those big Power 4 conferences, with the Pac-12 basically being non-existent. So, USC's, if Lincoln Riley leaves, they got to find a new head coach. Don't know who that's going to be. UCLA no longer has Kelly. They lost a big time quarterback. So, I mean, it's Oregon's. The West is Oregon's to take or to give up. I mean,
they got a strong foothold there. I mean, Washington just made a playoff run, but then they lose. Yeah, DeBoer's gone to Alabama. So I mean, as far as like somebody who's set and grounded, I mean, I'd say Ohio State and Oregon, and then I would also. A lot of people sleep on Nebraska. I'm gonna tell you right now,
I'm
Nebraska,
I'm one of those people that's sleeping.
dude. I'm telling you right now, Matt Rule is a good college coach. All right, he might not be able to cut it in the NFL. He might not be able to handle that, but he can coach college football. And if you look at all his, his different tenures at Temple and Baylor, it's his year 3. Year 3 is his year that he spins it around. This is only going to be year 2 for him at Nebraska, but he might be able to do it a little bit quicker with, the transfer portal being a thing now and everything.
I will say, last year, they went 3-9 if I'm not mistaken.
I think they were 5-7 last year. 5-7.
Okay, so they did better, but all their losses. I can't pull them up yet, but all their losses were like 7 points or less, or most.
Yeah, they were
majority.
They lost pretty much all 1-score games.
Yeah, so I'll give him that, and don't get me wrong, big Nebraska fan, love the Blue Bloods, being good. When the Blue Bloods are good, college football is good.
Absolutely.
But there's just other than those those losses being close, at some point with these head coaches that they've been hiring and the recruiting that they're supposed to get and the development of the players that they're supposed to have, they haven't been good for a very long time now, or a good bit of time now. So it's like, when are they finally going to make that next step? And so, yeah, when I say I'm sleeping on them, it's because it's like, well, I look at Tennessee, right? We had, we were very bad for a very long time. We hire Heupel, and I believe in hype. I'm a Heupel guy. But we have that 11-win season with Hendon Hooker, right? Gets hurt, whatever. We win the Orange Bowl. And then the next year, we turn around, we go 8-4. So it's like, when are we just going to be consistent? So going back to Nebraska, it's like, it's that same thing. When are you going to get over that hump to be the elite program that you've always been in the past? But it is early in Matt Rule's reign over there. So,
Yeah, it's early in his tenure. I mean, it's kind of funny when you think about it. So Matt Rule, right? 5-7 was actually
with him at Baylor, by the way. Was impressed with him at Baylor. I will say that.
Right. But 5-7 was his best first year with the program that he's had yet. It sounds bad, but I mean, Baylor, I think he won 1 game his first year. Temple, I think he won maybe 2 or 3. But I mean, by year 3, both of them were 10-win programs.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're used to doing, winning 10 games with that much less talent, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and debate Baylor. I could see it. You can build it up. I don't think he was there. But I'd say Nebraska has the potential to build bigger than both Temple and Baylor.
They have the means, that's for sure.
The means. And
the resources. And I do like Coach Rule. I do like Nebraska. With a big time quarterback coming in, I think they can do it. It's just the reason why I say I'm sleeping on them is because it's like, when is it going to happen? Because it's like, again, going back to Tennessee, it's always this year's the year, this year's the year, this year's the year, and it just never quite happens.
Well, I mean, even Heupel at Tennessee, I mean, you got to think, as much as people try to make it a 1-year turnaround, like, it's just not.
No, 100%.
I mean, Oklahoma is a good example with Brent Venables. Texas was Sark. Like, year 1, I mean, Brent Venables went 6-7. Year 2, he's winning 10 games. Year 3, we'll see. I mean, that OU schedule is absolutely brutal. Probably second place to only Florida.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that conversation about SEC schedule. I mean, every year is going to be like that. So going back to talking about the SEC, I mean, yeah, it's, as you being, you haven't told them yet, but you being an Oklahoma fan and being in the Big 12 for a long time, you will soon learn that SEC schedule, it's every year. It's not just this coming year, especially with the expansion of the 2 other powerhouses in the conference.
I mean, I'd say that, but I'd say there's still a lot of times where you're going to get a worse draw than there's still definitely a variation in schedules.
Absolutely.
Missouri and Florida's schedule is not on the same level.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. My point is that it's you're never going to get an easy draw.
No, you're not getting an easy draw. There's not going to be any schedule that you look at and you're like, I don't see any way we don't go 12-0. Even if you're Georgia. I would say even if you're Georgia, it's tough to sit there and talk yourself into 12-0.
Well, because Georgia, correct me if I'm wrong, computer's almost done updating. Correct me if I'm wrong, Georgia next year plays Alabama, Texas, and Tennessee. Now, Tennessee is most likely a win for them. It's in Sanford Stadium, so at home. And we have a lot of question marks, too. Georgia's arguably, and I argue in favor of this, arguably the number one team in the country. Will be by the end of next year, I think.
Well, we got a top 25 episode coming up. I think we're going to do it here in about 2 or 3 weeks before the season drops.
Perfect. But they still got to travel to Austin to play Texas. And yep. I don't remember where they play for Alabama, but it's still going to be Alabama. They still got
week 4 Alabama, week 4.
In Tuscaloosa?
Yep.
Yeah, so exactly. So they got to travel to Austin, Texas to play Texas, and they got to travel to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to play Alabama. If you don't think those 2 games are going to be sold out, you're nuts. And then going back to that Tennessee game, it's a losable game, whether they will most likely win or not. So, yeah, even Georgia's schedule, even Tennessee's schedule, even Mizzou's schedule, which they have probably one of the easier schedules in the conference. I mean, it's just any given Saturday, like I said.
Yeah, it's definitely got more of I'd say an NFL feel. Especially with I think this is going to be a good, nice transition. Let's go ahead and start transition. I want to come back to I don't want to leave the ACC out. All right. They did add some new schools. SMU finally got the Power 4 bid, which, I mean, the SMU donors, I mean, you see what they did?
No, I didn't.
So SMU, the donors there, they pretty much fronted the bill. They said, we don't need the ACC's media contract. We'll foot the bill for it if you accept us in the country. So they literally took a seat to get a seat at the table. They said, the donor said, we'll take care of it. So, I mean,
jeez.
SMU so got some NIL money over there.
I was going to say they got the back, and then obviously I will say I'm shocked they didn't go to the Big 12. But if, and how college football is shaped to be now, it is more about the money. So what would make sense geographically and I think competition-wise for SMU, I would have gone Big 12. But if the money's probably more so in the ACC than the Big 12.
For some reason, I mean, I just don't think I would have to look into it. There's people who keep up with conference realignment a lot more than I do.
I try to.
Yeah, SMU. I just don't think if the Big 12 wanted SMU, they would have had them. You get what I mean?
Oh yeah, on the conferences side, absolutely. I'm saying what would have made sense to me if I was SMU.
Yeah, I think they wanted the bid. I just don't think they were going to get it.
Right. For wins and losses purposes and geographic reasons and bringing rivalries back or creating new ones, in TCU and other, Texas.
Yeah, I mean, they got their literally cross city rival. I mean,
yeah.
They SMU, it feels like a Big 12 school, and I think, if they got if they got under it and got fully established in a Power 4, I mean, you got to think SMU used to they used to win natties back in the day.
Oh, yeah, before the death penalty, man.
Yeah, before the death penalty. I mean, they're not, they have the NIL donors. They have the backing. I mean, that's a kind of a...
Which was news to me. I knew it was a very wealthy school, but I didn't think athletics-wise, they had almost SEC tier donors.
Yeah, I mean, not to make a pun out of it, but their donors definitely pony up.
Yeah, there you go. There you
go.
So
let's dive into the 12-team playoff. So that's another big change that's coming. For everybody who is not aware, is that we're going from a 4-team college football playoff, and we're tripling in size. We're moving to a 12-team playoff with also 5 auto bids. Okay, so we're going to have the top 5 ranked conference champions. Meaning that's how the group of 5, they got their one in, since now we're.
Yeah. So it's the the Power 4 now.
Yeah. They really need to come up with a different name for it. You can't just. Yeah. I don't think you can remoniker that. Yeah.
Power 5 to Power 4. Yeah, it's a little weird. Seen a lot of people on social media and stuff not being too big of fans of it, but I'm sure something will arise, or it'll just be Power 4. But yeah, and then of course the one group of 5 bid for those top 5 spots. I'm excited. I'll talk about, before we talk about the 12-team playoff, and I guess it'll kind of transition into it. we'll talk about the playoff as a whole real quick. I've always been a fan of it. The BCS style, the BCS system was fun to grow up with, right? But being in a football family and growing up, also watching, FCS football, Division I FCS football, Division two football, they always had playoffs. So FCS, if I'm not mistaken, is 14 or 16, and then Division II is like 32 teams. Like
it's a little crazy.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Division I FBS needs to go that big, but always growing up, I had always wondered why FBS had never gone to it. And so when we went to the 14 playoff, I was like, man, start with 8 right away. But I get it. They want to do their tester, and it worked for a while, obviously, for damn near 10 years. So when they started talking about the 12-team playoff, I got excited. Me personally, and people were. I was surprised that people were hating on it so much. I'm like, dude, it's, more games. Now, logistically, yeah, there are some complications, and I guess that was the big argument against it. But like, man, I'm all for the 12-team playoff. So
yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, it. Let me think about it this way. So when we were growing up, watching college football, if your team took one loss, that was your season. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
It's like because I mean, everybody starts out, they're like, oh, this year's our natty year. We're coming for it all this year. It's like, but you take one L along that regular conference, and then you're like, our season's over. It's just a devastating day. You got to go to sleep. You got to restart. You can't even see anybody for probably the next 2-3 days. You got to take the Monday, Tuesday off work. Don't even show up till Wednesday. And so I think you are going to lose that part of it, but it will keep more people engaged throughout the season because, now, especially with the gauntlets of the schedules, is, one loss doesn't send you home. You're not done for the season. It's like, hey, regroup,
Well, especially if they're non-conference losses, which I was reading something earlier today. The person that posted it was kind of posting it in a bad light, but I read it and I was like, that's kind of the point of the 12-team playoff, and an aspect that I like about it. But they were saying how Oklahoma State could essentially win or lose their first 3 games. Arkansas, there's 2 others. Again, don't have my computer up yet. Arkansas.
You pull it up, or does it matter that much?
It doesn't really matter that much. But the first, it was an example. First, they could lose those first 3 games and win out, and they'd be 10-3. But they win the Big 12 championship, right? So they go 10-3, and they could get a first-round bye in that playoff, being 10-3. And they said even 9-4, they could one conference loss in all 3 of those non-conference losses, and win the Big 12 and still get a first-round bye.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily opposed to it personally because it's like you take the NFL, right? And I know the talent is better because it's the best of the best, cream of the crop. But every football team from top down, has their days where things just aren't going right. I mean, you take a look at last year's Oklahoma State against who was it, UCF, where they got dog walked for 4 quarters.
Yeah, like right at the beginning of the year.
And they were like, I think it was like mid-season. Maybe it was towards the beginning. I don't know. You could probably check.
Let me look.
But yeah, they were like at least top 15, if not top 10, if I remember correctly. And UCF walks into Stillwater and dog walks Oklahoma State. Like 4 quarters domination. And it was big, but it was a Big 12 loss, and in the 14 playoff, I mean, you lose that game, it's like it's a bad loss at home. And so it's basically like, yeah, you're not making it.
Oh, that's right. That was late in the season. That was right after Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma.
Right. So exactly. So I remember seeing that they beat Oklahoma in the last Bedlam.
Yeah.
And then they turn around and get just shat on for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And it's just like
45-3.
Yep. And it's like it literally. I remember it happened, and I was so mind blown by that score because I actually thought Oklahoma State was very good, and they are a good team. But
they also lost to. I mean, that's the same Oklahoma State team they got dog walked at the beginning of the year by South Alabama,
Well, exactly. So
33-7.
So if you take and what was their final record? What would they end up at? Oklahoma State.
Let's see.
What was it? It was
Looks like they finished overall 10-4, 7-2 in the conference.
So I mean, you take one of those conference losses away, we're talking, probably a playoff berth in the 12-team scheme.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, I mean, if they beat Texas in that conference championship game, they're in.
Well, exactly. So it doesn't even matter. Well, I guess that was the second loss, technically. Second Big 12 loss.
Let's discuss about that. Do you think that would make conferences start to? I mean, the money's there for the conference championship games, but do you think that would make them try to start weighing options, or?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm saying, like, say last year you had a Texas team coming into the conference championship at probably 11-1, one loss to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
All right. Well, they're sitting there. That's probably a 4 or 5 seed. It's always going to be right around there, 3, 4, 5 seed. And but say they lost to Oklahoma State in that conference championship game, knocks Texas possibly out of the top 12. Then Oklahoma State's your only bid in.
See, but that's the thing, is that's the beauty of the 12 team, right? And then you have the at-large bids. Just because there's 4 power conferences doesn't mean the rest of the people or the rest of the teams in the power conferences don't get in at all.
Yeah, I mean, you got the 7 at-larges.
So it does still have the same concept as the 4 team, where if you have quality losses and quality wins, you can still easily get in. I mean, we saw that with Alabama last year, right? Did they deserve it? Who knows? But they got in. So, do they get the conference champion bid and the bye? No, they'll get one of those back half rankings, and they'll have to play, down or into the playoff more. But I believe that Texas was in the playoff last year, regardless. If it was a 12-team playoff.
So you're saying if it was a 12-team? How about saying?
Yeah. Sorry, had they lost? So in your scenario there, yeah,
Texas
I think they would have still been in the 12-team playoff. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
They were one of the top 4 teams in the country last year, in my opinion. So obviously they ended up being. Hell, they got to playoff. I kind of wanted them to win the whole thing. As much as that pains me to say as the real UT fan, but
yeah, I can't get behind that. You're gonna be alone on that stand.
Oh, Tennessee being the real UT?
No. About wanting UT to win it all, or Texas to win it all. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was, well, different conversation, but yeah, I was just kind of one of the team. Coming from the West Coast, didn't want to see Washington win. Hate Alabama as a Tennessee fan. Who was that dang number 1 seed?
Michigan,
that's right. Oh yeah, and I cannot stand Michigan. And I can't stand Harbaugh either. So yeah, it was kind of lesser of the evils.
I mean, I figured Michigan had cheated enough; they're probably going to win it. Yeah, Tom Brady deflate gate. You got
give Harbaugh his one.
Dude, who was the guy they had stealing signs? Like, it was like a whole scandal deal. What's that guy's name?
I don't. Oh man, Stallions.
Yeah,
Stallions. I think it's his name. His first name. Yeah, that's the assistant coach. Well, that's what I was actually going to say. Going back to the Oklahoma State UCF game, I was so shocked by that score. I was like, bro, is there like a former Michigan assistant on UCF? Like, did they get the sign stolen or something from Oklahoma State? Because, I mean, to walk into Stillwater and just absolutely. But Gus Malzahn, so who knows?
I mean, it's got to be one of those, kind of hangover games. You win the last Bedlam. And that's like an Oklahoma State Super Bowl. I mean, they got that made up 1945 national championship. But...
Well, no, don't let the Oklahoma bias start coming out. Let the OU bias show in a little bit.
So, looking at it, how do you? So, now we're going to change pretty much our opinion from, there was always a great debate over number 4, who's going to be that 4th team? Who's it going to be? Is it this conference champ or that conference champ? We at least get rid of that part of it. And you kind of have the argument. It's like, well, if you wanted to be there, you should win your conference. But
at least, right?
Yeah, you should win your conference. Then you at least have that. But now that argument's going to be transitioned down to probably that 12th spot. You're going to have a bunch of teams. It's going to be a kind of a mixture of a schedule. You'll have some. You might have a Washington there, Oklahoma there, Ole Miss there.
It's going to be, man. I really like the 12 team plan, and I'll have to look into it more. So, especially now that we're starting this show. They came out with basically the design of how the seeding works, all 12 seeds. And I don't know exactly how, and I will eventually know, I promise.
You mean they came up with like a criteria, or?
Yes. Basically, how each at-large seeding is going to pan out. Based on who's who and who's where in the top 25, or not in the top 25, which would be interesting to see. But yeah, once I learn that, I'll be able to speak more on it. But yes, to your point, I'm very excited to see, because it'll almost be, so how it's like that final 4th seed was like all the drama, right?
Yeah, it's always about who's going to be number 4. 1 and 2 were always set. Who's going to be 1 and 2.
Yeah.
3's probably it's going to be this team. They'll either be 3 or 4, but they're not going to be out. And then you had 4 spot, which could be anybody.
So now take this 12-team playoff. It's almost as if, if the brief moment I looked at the seeding, the way that they had it designed, it's almost as if you get multiple seeds that are like the 4th seed drama. Like those 10, 11, those 10, 11, 12. So like
probably 9 through 12.
Yeah, 9 or even 10 through 12, 10, 11, 12 are like, we have no idea who these teams are going to be. Which I think is awesome.
I mean, well, like I said, we'll get into it more whenever we do our top 25 show here in 2 or 3 weeks. But I mean, that 12th spot. I mean, I see.
Yeah, that'll be the one.
I mean, I see 7, 8 SEC teams that I could very well see at the end of the year, being in there. Now, granted, I'm not saying all 8 of them, but I'm saying, each one of them, you could talk me into them making the 12-team playoff.
Well, you could. I mean, yeah, definitely. We're talking about the SEC. You could absolutely make arguments for just based purely on last year's performance.
Yeah,
probably 8 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Just at the top of my head,
they could almost fill the 12-team playoff themselves.
Yeah, you can't, because, and I'm a Kentucky hater through and through, but you can't tell me Kentucky couldn't at least a little bit hold their own. If you put them in there, I'm not saying they deserve it, but you can't. You can make an argument.
I mean, so the thing is where, you're going to draw the lines is, where does a Kentucky compare to any Big 12 team? If any Big 12 team went and played Kentucky today, went and played Kentucky today, who's going to be favored over Kentucky?
I mean, maybe, depending on what team they have, and I would still say not, but maybe Iowa State, maybe Oklahoma State, maybe Baylor.
I was almost leaning towards Utah.
Yes, Utah. I forgot they're over there.
It's Big 12 country now, baby.
Oh yeah, I'm so happy they went to the Big 12. I'm so happy they went to the Big 12. I'm a big Utah fan. No reason to be, but big Utah fan. Always have been.
Everybody seems to really like the Utah fan base. They seem to.
Yeah, I've heard only good things about them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got but they got Cam Rising coming back. I mean,
Cam Rising too. Love that dude. Dude's electric.
Yeah, and he, he missed all of last season, and I mean, they still finished 9-3, 10-2. I mean, and that was with basically starting, anybody they could at quarterback.
Yeah. So Utah's got some good stuff going on over there. That coach is a veteran coach that's been there forever. Mm-hmm. He's only had success, especially in the past, at least 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Utah would probably be the one, maybe Oklahoma State, that I would favor over Kentucky. And this is based off last year's performances. probably the only two. Probably would be the only two that I'd favor over Kentucky if they were to go head to head. So, and that's very likely one of your Big 12 champions this next year. So,
yeah, it makes for a lot of interesting debate though of how we're switching from that 4-team to that 12-team, and it opens up a lot. I mean, me personally, I think I would rather them see probably go to a 16. I think 16 might end up being where they end up settling.
16 teams, 1-6.
Yeah, 16 team.
Yeah, man, that's.
But I think we're gonna have the 12-team for a couple of years. But
I like
16.
12. I like 12. I like 14. Like the NFL moved to 14, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago. So you can make it all the same platform, I guess. But we'll see how the 12-team pans out. Who knows? They might go down to 8. They might go back to 4. I'm hoping that it stays to at least 12. But
so the way I see it is, so if you're comparing college football to the NFL, right? The NFL has a 14-team playoff with 32 teams total.
Right.
So basically, you just have to be in the top half, just above the top half. Correct. Of teams are all make the playoffs. Well, college football, I mean, way more than 32 teams. I mean, I think it's 130.
Well, you could argue those top 32 teams are all have arguments. Top 32 teams in college football all have arguments for some kind of seeding. If even in 12. Now, I'm not saying the 32nd ranked team in college football deserves that 12 seed, but I'm sure there's an argument. If you were to look up the final poll from last year and look at number 32, I'm sure it's probably somebody that you could make an argument for in a 12-team playoff.
Yeah,
I don't know who it is. Actually,
so it's like Nick Saban said, at SEC Media Days this week. He basically said he's like it really comes down. He doesn't appear to be a fan of the auto bids for conference champs. He wants just the 12 best teams. That might be tying back to his Alabama bias, from the years where he didn't make it, and him saying, he's like, hey, who would be favored over us right now, and it's one of those deals where it's like, and I agree, but you also got to beat who's on your schedule. Regardless of who would be favored over you or not, still got to beat the teams on your schedule.
Well, and that's the thing too is it's hard to make that argument because you could say, well, no, you just pick the top 12 teams, numbers 1 through 12, right?
Yep.
But all 12 of those teams are probably going to be Power 4 conference teams because
most likely,
because CFP are maybe one group of 5, but because the CFP poll, when it comes out each week, it's all going to be, strength of schedule, quality losses, quality wins. Those are going to be the teams that actually play harder competition, which is those Power 4 conferences.
Yep.
I mean, you might get an App State or a Coastal or a Tulane that sneaks into that here and there. But, I mean, for the most part, who's normally your top 12 on any given year, right? It's going to be those Power 5 and the past Power 5, Power 14. So I like what his thought process is, but you can't do that.
I think he's more. So let's move on to our next point. Next point in the rundown is kind of a terrible transition, but I think that's we could talk about the 12-team playoff for, literally hours upon hours.
Computer is up and running, so I'll be able to
we finally got some progress through our technical difficulties.
I'll be able to fact check myself finally.
Okay. So let's go into one of the biggest things that happened to college football this week is ESPN college football came back.
Oh, after EA CFB 25. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. After a decade hiatus, we finally got the college football video game back. What do you think? What's your impressions? How do you like it so far?
Man, I didn't even want to do this podcast episode because I was too busy playing that thing.
You got to build that dynasty.
Yeah. No, I got to, dude, that freaking game is insane. People have been playing it, obviously, so for those who don't know, which I'm sure if you're a college football fan and watching this at any point in this podcast timeline, you probably know what it is. But for those who don't know, early access was Tuesday afternoon. The actual release date is tomorrow or tonight at midnight.
Yeah, tonight at midnight it drops.
Eastern time. But so I have the early access. Couldn't help myself. I freaking love the game. A lot of the people that have the early access and have been playing, well, it's mixed emotions. You know, everyone's very thankful that it came out. Obviously, it's been 11 years since the last one, NCAA 14. So everyone's thankful for the most part. But you get the people that were saying that, it wasn't going to be a Madden reskin, that are now turning around and saying, well, I've been playing it more, and now it's a Madden reskin. I never really played a whole lot of Madden on the next gen consoles. But when I did, I never really minded what Madden was. I was always impressed with the graphics and the way that the mechanics of the runners and the quarterback motion and et cetera, and the lucid movements when it came to tackling and juking and getting tackled while juking and stuff, deep dive stuff. And so playing this game, it's obviously compared to NCAA 14, way better just graphics wise. I love the revamped passing that they added to it. I'm still getting the hang of it, but I do like it. It gives you a lot more responsibility, but a lot more control as the quarterback, in my opinion. And then obviously the recruiting details in Dynasty, the realism. So, Murdy, I don't know if you know this, but in the deep dive the Dynasty deep dive that they did before the game was released at all, they talk about that it's so in depth that East Texas is known for producing big receivers, huge receivers, right? Well, in the game, if you recruit from East Texas receivers, they're most likely going to be like those big, deep threat or go up and get it, receivers. Whereas if you recruit a quarterback from Southern California, that's going to be a hub for quarterbacks because Southern California is known for quarterbacks. They do that in the game, which I thought, detail-wise, it's very impressive. So
that means
I'm a big fan of it.
So if you want the dogs on the D line, you got to go into the Southeast.
Yeah,
well, you got to be hitting the Georgias, the Alabamas.
Well, right.
You get
seriously, because they also talk about the going back to the East Texas big receivers, and they say comparatively, you go to South Florida, you're going to get those smaller, faster receivers.
Yeah,
the deep threats, not the bigger guys. The bigger guys have to go up and get it. The deep threats are so if you recruit from South Florida, you get those fast guys. So I think that's really cool that they added so much detail into the game, into the Dynasty part of the game. I'm a big Dynasty guy. I haven't really played anything else but. So yes, I give the game 5 stars out of 5 as of right now. I know a lot of people don't agree with me, but I think for the most part, over 90%, over 95% of people are just happy that it's back. So,
yeah, I think that's the category I fall into. I did try the Road to Glory. I started it a little earlier this afternoon.
There you go.
I started as a 3-star playing for Northwestern, so I didn't see the field my freshman season. So
yeah,
really just getting a whole lot of practice drills in and make sure I'm studying up on my playbook and my books. But as far as the Dynasty, man, it's cool. The recruiting's a great aspect of it. I think it's.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it's a great. It's real realistic. If you don't have pipelines set up into different places, it takes that into account. How have you recruited there in the past? How have you, and what you're tied to, and how do you develop guys at that position? I started as an Oklahoma dynasty. I wanted to start off with something a little easier. I didn't want to take on the challenge of, starting at Texas State or, SFA.
So that's funny.
Exactly.
Funny that you mentioned Texas State because and being a longtime NCAA player and big Dynasty fan, I like the recruiting challenges. I started with Texas State. Still on year 1. We are currently 9-1.
Jesus.
With 1 loss in the Sun Belt, 5-1 in the Sun Belt. But no, this is the first time that I've played Dynasty in any of the NCAA games where I've had to freaking recruit 2 stars and 3 stars. My first year. My first year at Texas, I did Texas State and NCAA 14 not too long ago. Dude, I was getting 4 stars year one. So which is unrealistic at the end of the day when you're talking about Texas State. So,
I mean,
but it's cool. I like it. I mean, I'm getting excited over 3-star commits right now.
I mean that's a big fish right there.
Yeah, for that program for sure. I mean, so that's
Yeah.
I mean, I love the realism of the game. Like I said, I've only played Dynasty so far, but big fan. I need to get my Road to Glory started though.
Yeah, I mean I think the Road to Glory. We'll see how it ends up. I'm projected to take over. I made sure I went and joined a team that had 2 seniors in front of me. So
There you
I
go.
planned on sitting my freshman year, then hopefully taking the reins over on my sophomore year. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'll give y'all an update next week whenever we record the second episode of the podcast.
Yeah. I'll probably by the time we get to that next episode, I'll probably be done with season 1 with Texas State, so I'll be able to give a recap of the season. Yeah, man, I freaking lost a heartbreaker to who was it? Louisiana Lafayette conference game, man. It hurt. I was 7-0. Man, I threw 4 picks, 2 pick sixes in that game. Lost 40-37.
That's tough.
Yeah, that was a brutal one, man. That was a almost controller through the TV screen game.
Yeah, I've had a couple. I do find myself, because I played Call of Duty before, and before that's what I spent most of my time was. I do find myself getting way more frustrated playing college football, dude. I'm losing it.
Man, it's and with this game, I mean, I did with NCAA 14, but with this game, man, and the realism and how much better the DBs play against you compared to the older NCAA games, man. If you make a mistake as a quarterback, they are going to capitalize off it, and it drives me up a flipping wall. Sometimes when you think you make a good throw and the meter goes to red, and so it's gonna be a little bit behind him or whatever.
Yeah,
man, you got that DB right there, and he just
he's just undercutting it, or it's ridiculous.
I just dropped my head.
And like it's on YouTube.
Like real life shit, dude. Like real life shit. Like drop my head. Yeah. Yeah, dude. I guess that's the good thing about that game, though. It's just hopefully my controller doesn't end up through my TV. That 75-inch, that's got a lot of Tennessee games in the future that I need to be watching on, so can't be putting things through it.
Yeah, I think I may even just go ahead and order me a second controller, because last thing I want to do is break the one I got and then not be able to finish the game. Just because I threw a pick six, it ain't over, baby. We're coming back.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I said, I ended up losing that game 2 pick sixes, 4 total picks, and I lost by 3 points. Granted, I was down by a lot. I ended up coming back. And that fourth pick was on the final drive of the game. Not the pick six, it was just the fourth pick. Final drive of the game, I was down 40-37, driving to win with like a minute left. And man, I threw that pick like second play of the drive, and I was just like, we're done.
There it is.
Yeah.
So let's talk about number 1 quarterback in the game. This is going to be a transition that I'm going to use later whenever we get into the
don't
weekly.
Even get me started about Colorado, dude.
So let's talk about it. Shedeur Sanders. Now, granted, him and Carson Beck, they are both 93s in the initial rankings, but
they're both tied.
Yeah, it's technically a tie. But what do you think about Shedeur Sanders being up there number 1?
Man, I'll say this: do I believe he's the number 1 quarterback in college football? No. However, and I don't like him because I don't like him. I don't respect his cockiness, and I know he gets it from his dad, and his dad feeds into it, and it causes that. Whatever. But I did have a conversation recently with one of my buddies, a knower of ball.
So they say.
I think Shedeur Sanders is a very good quarterback. Yeah. Actually,
I think he's a really good college quarterback. I mean,
no.
A really good college quarterback. I mean, he's got the stuff you need in college football to be able to make it work whenever your O-line, is not the best. He's got that kind of Lamar Jackson, able to just take over a game, which you could do in college football, as long as you're not playing, in the SEC.
Yeah,
If you're playing an ACC schedule, you're playing a Big 12 schedule or a Pac-12 schedule, or Pac-2 schedule, whatever. You could a quarterback can take over a game. I've watched. There was Lamar Jackson who did it. Kyler Murray could do it. Just single-handedly take it over, and he's one of those guys. He has that ability. However, how does that translate to a pro game? I mean, it's tough. It worked good for Lamar Jackson. But even then, he's still got to have the pieces around him.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. So, and I don't blame the players at Colorado, especially like the big Travis. Dude, I'm a big Travis Hunter fan.
Oh man, he's gonna be great. He's gonna be a great NFL player.
Athlete, very good athlete. And Shadir Sanders, the cockiness and stuff. It makes it hard to like him. And obviously, it didn't help with ESPN shoving Colorado down our throats all season last year. So they have kind of become. They went from hero to a villain pretty quick, and so there is a lot of Shadir Sanders disrespect. But last year, they went 4-8. And by the way, I told you in pedigree that was going to happen. I told y'all, man, that it was going to be 4-8. Anyways, dude, Shadir Sanders had 3,230 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, only 3 picks.
Solid.
I mean, if you're throwing only 3 picks in a 12-game season and you lost 8 of those, you would expect that number, especially the interception number, to be a little higher.
Or especially with the kind of style he plays, you would expect it to.
They're risk takers.
Huh?
They're risk takers.
Absolutely.
They're high octane, aired out offense. They're risk takers, and he's throwing 3 picks in a whole season, in a 4-8 season.
I mean, if you're throwing to Travis Hunter again, that helps too.
Yeah, but their schedule was no slouch, really. They beat TCU, which obviously TCU ended up proving to not be that much last year.
Real fall off after that national championship game.
Yeah, Georgia broke them. But that Colorado State game, you never know what's going to come in a rivalry like that. Colorado State definitely played up, but they still won.
It definitely played up, and there was a lot of. I can't remember was game day there for that one or no?
It was week 3.
I remember watching a lot of the pregame, and Jay Norvell, the coach of Colorado State. Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth. I remember there being a whole bunch of controversy going into that game.
I don't know if College Game Day was there that week because I think they were at Nebraska, Colorado the week prior.
Okay.
But and obviously they played Oregon the week after. They got dog walked by them. They barely lost to USC the week after. They beat ASU, and then they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight. 3 of those 5 were all ranked teams, though. So it's not like it was the easiest schedule. Now, granted, it was Pac-12, and people have their Pac-12 opinions. Pac-12 was pretty good last year, in my opinion.
It was a really good year for them to go out on. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, still 4-8. I'm still not a believer in Colorado as a team, but Shadir Sanders is a good quarterback. Now, that whole quarterback class, they're not as impressive as the past, but he's gonna end up being one of the top guys to go in the league. Eventually when he decides to go. How he performs in the NFL, it's a different conversation, but I think he'll be one of the ones that goes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially. So let's get into our. So it's a little segment we're going to try to put together. It'll be our weekly deadbeat and our victor of the week. Somebody who you're saying, hey, that's the more or less loser or a winner or however it goes. But a deadbeat or a victor. For this episode, you can pick one of each, or you can just do one. You're like, hey, this is who I got as the deadbeat of the week. Who you got?
Well, I don't really fully understand what this deadbeat thing is.
So it's basically just like a loser, somebody that's like they took an L this week, or you want me to give you mine?
Just you go. I'll play off it. How about that?
Okay, so my deadbeat of the week, I'm going with Shadir Sanders.
Okay, why is that?
After the comment I don't know if did you see it where he said Colorado's going to be everybody's Super
everyone's
Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, they already had a lot coming from them, and I guess that's just him playing into it. But I mean, Colorado, they're going to get everybody's best shot, but it's for, it's not in the same light that Alabama or Georgia is getting everybody's best shot.
So that's what I was thinking. And although he intended it as like, oh, because we're so good, everyone wants to beat us. That's probably what he intended it as. But it is everyone's Super Bowl because everyone wants to kick their ass so damn bad because they're annoying.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Is that no? It's not that everybody's like, if we go in, we play our best, we try our hardest, like we got them.
Yeah.
It's like if everybody executes, it's like, hey, no, let's go drop 70 on these dudes.
Yeah, we want to hang 56 on these motherfuckers.
Straight up.
That's what that Super Bowl is, but he meant it obviously the other way. Quinn Ewers was the one that, he pissed a lot of people off when he said it about Texas being everyone's Super Bowl, but he's not wrong. Because it's the one SEC team that everyone wants to beat because they just made the playoff and they're like, well, you're coming to the SEC, you're going to get dog walking every game. People are going to be surprised. And so everyone knows that they got to give Texas their best game.
Yeah. Well, I think it has to come with, I don't know if you ever met a Texas fan in person? I mean, you have to, being in Austin.
Loosely, I try to stay away from him.
Yeah.
There's a guy I work with that he's a casual Texas fan.
It's almost tough to talk to with the arrogance, but there are some good ones out there.
I'm sure they always have been. Trust me, I'm in the Tennessee fan base. I know arrogance when I see
it. Yeah. So, and then I'll go with my victor of the week. Who I just have to go pretty broad here. I'm going with the SEC in general, and that's just after watching SEC media days. Kind of new to me. However, it's just if you just look at the production that is SEC media days, and what all goes into it, and the amount of just basically the brand or the production that it is. I mean, it is really uncomparatively with any conference else that's in college football. I mean, nobody else kind of really matched. I mean, Big 12 did the whole Vegas thing, but even then, it's still just that production that was in Dallas. I mean, that's kind of one of a kind, and it shows you why the SEC is the elite conference.
Yeah, no, I agree. Man, it's the premier conference. It always has been, at least for a very long time, and especially is now. A lot of big things for the SEC. They kind of run college football. I mean, with several of the past national champions being SEC, and it's not even in football. I mean, we're talking across the board, most sports. I mean, it's baseball. SEC baseball. Yep, my Tennessee Volunteers just won. I mean, Oklahoma now softball being SEC.
Softball. It's true.
So you have yep, that's right. Pure domination across the board. But yes, especially football. It's an exciting time in the South to be a fan of any of those schools. I mean, hell, even though they don't really have any, they're like the LA Chargers of SEC. Even a Vandy fan, how few they have. It's an exciting time to be in the SEC. So yes, I'd have to agree with you that they're a winner.
Yep.
Now, man, loser of the week for me, or deadbeat of the week, man, I'd probably have to go with the Texas State Bobcats and the offensive coordinator Johnny Skeegs, man. My boy Johnny Skeegs in college football 25. We lost to Louisiana Lafayette, and we no longer have the undefeated season ahead of us. So, but we're gonna try to turn it around and win the Sun Belt. We got probably a tough conference championship, assuming we get there in App State. But as long as we get that, we're gonna try to make that 12-team playoff. But in all seriousness, my victor of the week, it's gonna be the Pac-12 or the Pac-2 commissioner.
Pac-2 commissioner? Said? No, yeah, I haven't heard anything.
She said. So at the Pac-2 media day, which
they did that. I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, they did. They did a Pac-2 media day, man. It was just Oregon State and Washington State. And so at the Pac-2 media day, they had an open bar.
Okay. I respect
it. And so, she was the commissioner, Teresa Gould, was on stage talking to the media and was saying, "We're going to drink tonight. If anyone has earned the right to drink, it's the Pac-12." And I was like, "That's my winner right there."
I respect it.
If anyone deserves a drink, she's damn right. It's the Pac-12 or
It's the
Pac-2,
Pac-12.
man. It's with a year like last year, the success they had, and no more Pac-12 after dark. It's gonna be a tough conference to see go, and but they're still fighting. I hope the Pac-12 can rebuild with some Mountain West teams and maybe trying to pick up a couple of those Big Sky FCS teams.
I've been looking to see what Boise State's going to do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. For the longest time, everyone's been trying to get them to go to the Big 12, but Pac-12 seems more logical, especially now. They could actually potentially be a powerhouse in the Pac-12. Just historically, and as long as they can get coaching and recruiting back, try to take control of that West Coast again, and rival Oregon when it comes to recruiting, which that's a different conversation. They have a serious shot of doing that. So I like I said, I hope Pac-2 becomes Pac-12 again. But my winner of the week, Commissioner Teresa Gould. We're going to drink tonight. If anyone's earned the right to drink, it's the Pac-12. So
I agree with them.
Yeah.
All right, so we got one last segment we're going to roll into. It's going to be Monty's weekly hot take. I wanted to know if have you done any preparing for this, or is this just going to be off the spout right here?
So I thought about this earlier, and man, I was trying to think of one, and the only thing I could come up with, and I told you this the other day, I was like, you had mentioned that it can't be my hot take every week, but it can be my hot take week one.
For episode 1, here we go.
Yeah, and this year's our year, baby. Tennessee wins the Natty.
Tennessee winning the national championship.
Yes, sir. We're taking it all the way. That's the hot take of the week.
That's going to be tough, especially starting with a week 4 loss at Oklahoma.
I think that's going to be that's going to be one of our cakewalk wins. But no, but I mean, on a serious note, there's no reason why they couldn't. As much as very tough to do,
especially with a freshman quarterback, tough to do.
Redshirt freshman.
I get that, but game experience, freshman.
Well, there's a lot of hype behind him, because if you watched our bowl game, which I did against Iowa, who had one of the top defenses in the entire country, atrocious offense, but very good at defense. We walked into that bowl game. He's our starting quarterback. That was his I'm the guy. Let's go. 35-0. Shut them out. Defense played ball. Offense took control of the game. It was never a doubt. It's a very good thing to see that, and then going into this next year. Do I actually believe Tennessee will win the national championship? Probably not. It's very hard to do it, even if you are a very, very, very good top 5 team. Do I think there's a possibility? Yes, absolutely. I believe in Heupel. He's shown to be a recruiting guru. He's shown to develop players that weren't even his recruited guys. So he can develop. He's got a good staff behind him. He's got a good quarterback now, as long as he, continues to progress. Obviously, you being an Oklahoma fan, Heupel's a very good quarterback guy, quarterback guru. No reason why they can't make that 12. Yep, believe in hype. Still, there's no reason why they can't at least make the 12-team playoff this next year.
I'd say, and y'all got
win the games. Go ahead.
Who's that defensive end y'all got? What's his name?
James Pierce. Probably going to be top 5 pick in the next draft.
I mean,
barring an injury or an absolute.
But I mean, that helps. Season. Having that presence coming off the edge. I mean, that's kind of.
Oh yeah. No, it'll be a very, very intriguing year for us. I'm excited for it, as is every other Vol fan that I talk to. It is one of those years where everyone's like, man, this is a good year to do it. Because we got a decent defense, quarterback that has shown against a Power 5, Power 4 team to dominate, and he's got some good receivers coming back. It's gonna be an exciting year for us. I think there's no reason why we don't make that 12-team playoff.
All right, with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the first episode of the Monty and Murdy College Football Show. Just want to,
Episode 1, man.
yeah, want to thank everybody for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Set up the alerts. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Subscribe on YouTube to our YouTube channel. You can find the link on any of our social medias. It's going to be the Monty and Murdy College Football Show on majority of them. Follow us. We'll be coming out with weekly episodes. Other than that, Monty, you got anything to say? Anything on your outro of it?
Yeah. I'll just say, for the people that do end up watching or listening to the podcast, again, I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning of the podcast. We're learning just like everybody else. It's episode 1. It's gonna be choppy. We're gonna learn some things. We're gonna change some things. But at the end of the day, we do love talking college football, and we wouldn't mind letting people hear our insight on things, because obviously we can talk to each other until kingdom come about college football. So we're excited. We're excited to get this show on the road, literally, and watch it progress and change and turn it into something that we really want it to be and goal. So we're excited. For whoever does listen to this first one, we appreciate it. Like Murdy said, you can find us anywhere that you find your podcasts, and we appreciate it.
All right, y'all. Well, thank y'all for tuning in. Be sure to tell your friends, subscribe, follow the show. Until next time, we'll catch y'all. Peace.
Later.